Tea. Tea would be nice.
I love what you've done with the place. It's so different, so cozy.
Well, go on, dear. Drink it while it's nice and hot. You run, dear, run. Because to stay will mean worse than your death. They float.
They float.
So, I wasn't good enough for you. I was once. Once upon a time. Don't you remember? The wolves in the forest are more decent.
Hello, I'm Larissa. Welcome to Goblins of Discord. So this video is on the Heart Center. This is on Enneagram Types 2, 3, and 4. I will be doing them for each center. I also totally forgot that a few months ago I wrote I don't know how many thousands of words about all of the types and various things that I've observed, and then I totally forgot to post them on the Substack, and I forgot to make videos about them. So there will be a bunch more kind of instructional, I guess, videos coming out. If that interests you, you can subscribe and give me a little digital kiss if you like. Might have just turned a few people off there. So yeah, if you'd prefer to read this, you can. Oh, and if you want to get typed by me, you can book below. Yeah, I think that's my preamble. So, trying not to edit these because it's such a fucking time suck to edit these that I don't want to do it anymore. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. So I'm going to talk about the Heart Center today. I get asked a lot by people what Enneagram material or books I recommend, and I always recommend Riso and Hudson. So I'll be expressing previously understood and uncovered concepts with my interpretations of them. My understanding pathway, though, I will have to warn you, is informed by what I find profoundly irritating about the types via my own personal experience. So this won't be flattering. It won't be a soft focus baby blue production, more like a handheld camera with cubicle office lighting that makes everyone look like they're decaying and septic. If you don't like that kind of talk about the types, then don't watch it. Don't complain, just don't watch it. You know what I mean? If you're too soft for it, then just read a glow up on Instagram. Read why you're so special as a type 4, which you're probably not. So we're all doing our ego's version of being terrible. And don't worry, none will be left unscathed. But if you're a pain piggy, please enjoy torturing yourself in the name of enlightenment and self-growth. And again, subscribe for free to both my Substack and my YouTube. So first I'm going to talk about misinterpreting the self-image. So image types or heart types, that's Enneagram 2, 3, or 4, are shame types. And another way of looking at what a shame type is that they're trying to avoid shame. So their unconscious goal, so meaning they're not like, I mean, they might be conscious of this sometimes, but for the most part, they're unconsciously on autopilot, trying to circumvent feeling humiliation and shame, degradation, violation through their self-image, identity, and sense of self. And all attempts to drag their self-concept through the mud misrepresent it. And I'm saying misrepresent it because how they see themselves isn't necessarily accurate, okay? Or distorting their self-image. It must be fended off. So again, like even if it's true, it will trigger them, what you said. Because image types are kind of liars. It's like 3 to me is the biggest liar. 9s are kind of liars too. But image types are kind of lying to themselves because they're spinning a narrative about themselves that they're trying to like almost convince, like unconsciously convince others of. 3s more consciously than 2s and 4s. Image types are trying to outrun the hounds of shame by fixating and doubling down on their self-concept. Their existence hinges on being able to deflect shame hot potatoes and keep their fantastical self-symbol alive and protected, hiding in the closet from the barking dogs that howl. You're not the way you think you are. Here's how you actually are. I guess that's not a hound. Anyway, whatever. If you inadvertently trigger this wound, this fight or flight response, because that's what happens is people go into fight or flight when their type mechanisms are triggered. And that's when they act out of pocket. That's when they go crazy. That's when they do like fucked up stuff. And so you've unknowingly, usually, unless you're trying to trigger them, pass them a shame potato, and then you might find it spiked back in your face. And I'll get into what that means like in a few minutes. So triggering this response can come about by you like doing or saying something that reveals to them that they're not in alignment with how they think they are, like how they see themselves. So for a 2, that upset could be caused by you pointing out where their help had negative consequences. You don't need their help with something that they're trying to insert themselves into, like you keep rejecting their help, they're rejection types, so they're sensitive to that. Suggesting that they have a self-motivated agenda, or by not appreciating the 50 cookies that they brought to the party. So just ignoring whatever their offering is. Their special thing that they created for you, even if they bought it from the store and pretended that they baked it themselves. So this is reductive, but it's also true because I have to be able to simplify this to make it clear what they're doing, right? I can't cover everything in one video. This video is already going to probably be an hour. So you made them feel unnecessary or seen as uncaring. So this is what activates a 2's shame. For a 3, that can be treating their value, which is usually dictated by their instincts, so social, sexual, or self-preservation. And what people say is like sexual can also come through the social lens or the self-preservation lens, so that can be like their body, how popular or appealing they are. So as trivial or unimportant. So if you treat their whatever they deem valuable about themselves, or even just themselves in general as trivial or unimportant, then you can activate a 3. 3s can even be triggered by encountering someone who's better at what their ego resides in. So that's being attractive, competent, skilled, talented, popular, prolific, magnetic, especially like for sexual types, if it's related to like their partner or partners, whoever, it's like you're threatening that connection that they have, that ability they have to pull them in. So something that's instinctually valuable to them, and usually other people as well, because they're an adaptation and attachment type. So there will be like there'll be a reflection of value outside in the greater world where it's like, this is deemed whatever, valuable. So for a 4, that could be something as simple as treating them as if they're not a rarity and not catering to their preciousness or forgetting to walk on eggshells in their presence. You might get a cutting look or a how dare you if you request them to engage in lowly trash pursuits, which is more like 4 wing 3, or something that's showy and fake, which is more 4 wing 5, and 6s can have this too, but especially 6s with 4 fix. 4s are the only ones allowed to have a rider of special exceptions. So this is where 6 and 4 differ, is that 4s are like, they want to be seen as the special exception. They're not down in the mud with the rest of you, okay? So yeah, they're the only ones allowed to have the special exception thing too, so that might trigger them too. It's implied and not necessarily dictated. So to expect them to participate like a regular person is insulting to them on an identity level. And it doesn't, this is why people hate actual fours. Like, they're insufferable. Like 12s and 9s and 6s who are like, I'm a four. It's like, are you insufferable? And do you enjoy being insufferable? If you don't, then maybe you're not a four. So it doesn't matter that the 2 isn't actually helpful or needed. Doesn't matter if they're not. Or that the 3 isn't actually valuable or impressive or in the context that they are. I mean, everyone's valuable. Okay, everyone's worthy. Or that the 4 isn't actually rare or deep. Everyone's unique. Okay, guys, everyone cares. Everyone's unique. I'm not being a bitch. But this is the lie that they must believe about themselves in order to survive. So everyone can have the whole like, I want to be seen as helpful. I want to be seen as valuable. I want to be seen as unique or rare or deep. But this for actual like core image types, like this is how they instinctively survive. And like I talk about this in other videos, like the personality trap video, stuff like that. It's like, if I'm not this way, I don't exist. So this is like how our so if you're like, oh no, I don't feel that way, then you're not an image type. So it's like, this is how the personality's ego mechanism works. 2s, 3s, and 4s will do anything to keep the shame hot potato from staying in their lap. They must spike it away from themselves, eject it from their consciousness, lest it wrap its roots around their heart and devour their most prized organ, their heart, and their sense of identity. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about shame and that's not meing. So this is something that all image types do. I've seen it associated with just 4, but all image types do it. And again, people who just have like image center second or something, or last even, can still do this. But this is sort of like a running program for image types. So all image types auto-reflexively know at misinterpretations of their self-image, how they see themselves. It's a dagger straight to their sense of self-worth when you misinterpret it. It can inflict agony upon them to be confronted with information contrary to the fantasy that they paint of themselves. And I can already feel a bunch of people relating to this that aren't image types. So it's not just people misrepresenting you, it's the specific way that it shows up in the image center, which I'll get into in a second. How this no can manifest is quite literally no, and then insert image correction. No, no, no. And then they can sometimes like double down on what they've said or reiterate it or say it slightly differently, repeat the same thing in a different way. My mom's a 2, and this happens all the time. Even if I'm just like, I don't care. No, 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 and then repeat it like, I don't care. No, no, you do care. No, here's what I tell you anyways. So it's a thing. And they can also have like this is probably more likely for a 3 or a 4, a hostile overreaction, or get irritated and end the interaction. So everyone has a heart center. We all do our type center to a degree, but you'll notice this kind of thing more with core heart image types. And again, if you're a 9 and you're like people don't see me as like intuitive and deep and caring and holding space and like mysterious or something, it's like you're probably a 9, probably not a 4, because what do you do when people do that? Do you just get sad? 9. So this process is not about you, the audience, the observer, the person they're interacting with. It's about the image type and how they perceive themselves. And this mirage is created to avoid the pain of shame on the identity level. Shame can make you feel violated, disgusting, degraded, and left in tatters on the floor, as if someone is pissed in your face, which is why hostility is associated with the image center, because no one wants to have their face pissed on. Well, unless you do, which, God willing, God bless you. Why did this make me want to drink my coffee? I don't know. Again, other types can be hostile though, but it's specifically about their image center. Because this is the hill they'll die on. It's where their self-worth resides. A 2 knows at you misunderstanding their loving, positive, and helpful good intentions. How could it be anything but that? I'm but an angel of spiritual nutrition and delicious titty to all who are worthy. So twos, not necessarily, they're pleasant, they'll be nice, but they're not necessarily being caring and nurturing to everyone, right? Like usually they have, it's like the line to four thing, they're special people, but they're by default kind and like open-hearted or, well, open-hearted. They'll double down on how charitable and big-hearted they are. To be seen as uncaring or self-serving would cause them tremendous shame. Therefore, they have no malintent. Nothing they do ever has negative consequences, according to them. Doesn't mean it's not true. And you, the dependent, the family, the lover, the close friend, absolutely need them. And if they feel that you don't need them and they cannot create a situation in which you do need them, the relationship may experience a rough patch because not being needed or having their caring received as caring is so painful to them on the identity level. They may continuously try to become necessary in your life, often like a broken record, because it's like twos like are rejection types, so that means they're just sort of doing the same thing over and over again, offering you what they think that you need via their dominant instinct. So this can be social, sexual, or self-preservation. So like how I've seen it, with like self-pres twos, for example, is it like money or like food or like useless shit that you don't want. Like a lot of twos and two fixers will just kind of give you stuff where it's like, I don't want that. I don't want that thing. And a three knows at you misunderstanding they're valuable, attractive, and skilled, whether it's actual skills like self-pres skills, popularity, so social, having like prestige, the hierarchy, social value, or sex appeal, magnetism, like sexual instinct, in their self-image. So this will be flavored by their wings, of course. And this is important for a three specifically because their adaptation and attachment types. So maybe you misunderstood or interrupted their three-wing two story about a special connection that they had with somebody else, which insinuates their value, or how people threw them a party, which insinuates how desirable they are to others. Or perhaps you interrupted or misunderstood their existential three-wing four story about how the grind is wearing them down, which insinuates that they suffer for their success. Or how people are getting in the way of their success, because it's never a three's fault. They're perfect unless they do self-work and then they'll own their bullshit. Or how all of these people find them so attractive and they're constantly being hit on, insinuating their sexual market value. You'll understand that they are more or better than others in some area that their ego likes to hang out. And if they have like a 6 fix, for example, or a 9 fix, they might be like a little bit less overt about it as like than like a 3, 7, 8 or something. But it's still there. You'll understand that they, I'm just repeating that. So, because to feel less than or a loser in this category stirs up a great deal of shame and horror. It makes them feel worthless, which causes them to go into the three's coping strategy of image PR mode. And if that means destroying you in the process, so be it. I recommend like Riso and Hudson. I know that some threes hate this shit. Too bad. Reading the low house stuff of Riso and Hudson is like fascinating. Because like threes will sometimes try to take you down if you fuck with their image, their sense of self. So, and you might not even know that you're doing it, by the way. This can like literally be just you shining brighter than them in a certain situation that their ego resides. So if you wound a three self-image by not recognizing or appreciating their worth, or worse, you inadvertently outdo them, like I said, or call out their competitive bullshit, or point out the holes in the mounting deceptions that they're weaving, because they're liars in the heart type, liars in the heart center. They will set out to ruin your image and reputation behind the scenes, to pass on the shame hot potato that they think you gave them. And this is from personal experience multiple times, all right? So, and they do this to regain their sense of self and fend off the hounds of shame. A 4 knows at you misunderstanding their tragic, unfixable, and precious separateness. You can't and won't be able to understand it or relate to it by design. A 4 is the only one not wearing a mask, according to the 4, because like they have ego around authenticity, like all reactive types being 6 and 8. And fours exist in a plane of personal and creative significance and meaning that is unknowable to others. And they will auto-reflexively have a disgust response if you, a phony, attempt to insert, compare, or attach your shallow experience to their melodramatic romance and artistic suffering of their experience, or if you try to compare it to somebody else's as well. Or worse, you try to inflict your hideous vision or aesthetic onto them. And three and fours can get triggered by this too, actually, because you're being fake and they aren't. You can't possibly relate to their experience because that would mean that they have something in common with an empty lowlife like you. And again, this can be you comparing them to somebody else. Where other types might be flattered, like, oh, you think I'm like this writer? Great, thank you. That's so validating. Whereas if you say it to a four or a four fixer, it's likely to be sort of met with like, ew, like, no, I'm not like that. It's not flattering to compare me to somebody else. And so it is you who are in the wrong for attempting such an act of profanity. They may even try to unconsciously one-up your sob story or your special melodrama or the thing that you're sharing with them with this kind of shit that makes people, that usually people want to keep hidden or would view as a weakness or a defect, because there's not room for more than one special exception, just so we're clear. So they're not going to one-up you like a three would, where it's like they're trying to, like, well, I'm more impressive. Like, here's what I did. It's like not like that. It's more like something dark or like tragic about them. Or twos can do this too, sometimes, especially if they have a six fix. But so again, like what I'm explaining is like I'm telling you what the types are doing, but other types can and do dip into these behaviors. And like sixes can also kind of especially with a four fix, can get disgusted by you comparing them to people. Anyone with a four fix can, but especially like an image type is doing their type. Like, you know, you think about like a social six or something, if you're like, and they're like, I don't know, like a liberal or something, and then you compare them to some conservative, they're going to flip their shit. Doesn't matter if they have like a four fix or not. Like they could lose their mind, right? So it's not the same thing as what I'm talking about, because for four, it's about being like separate and like rare and like the special exception that's incomparable to anything else. So it's not the same thing. I hope that this makes sense. And also I kind of wrote more on four just for this because there is so many misunderstandings about four. And this is just my take, so you don't have to agree with me, but this is how I see four. So for most people, relating is how they feel safe and connect with others. Relating and connecting puts the four's entire self-concept in danger. It's ruining their fantasy, which is everything, and not the same as a nine fantasy, okay? So if they relate to you, if a four relates to you or gives you special attention, or they invite you into their experience, they befriend you, they show attention to you, they're making a sacrifice or they've taken a shine to you, okay? This is a grand act of generosity from their perspective. This is not autopilot. They do not feel obligated to do this. This is a conscious choice, and it is your honor. They've carved out a little cushion for you, treasured guest, and because the special exception type has made a special exception for you, it can leave them feeling utterly violated and degraded if they made the wrong call, and the other person, like you, may or may not have an idea what you actually did or said to insult the four, because their list of qualms are so specific to them, and it will also depend on what their fixes are. A four wishes to connect underneath the mask, into the depths and truth of someone, which is often disturbing to others, negative, horrible, or tragic. And there are reactive types, so sixes can be like this too, eights can be like this too. But for the four, it's like if they're making the great sacrifice of connecting with you, it's because they deem you worthy of their highly limited and precious other-oriented resources, which is where it sort of overlaps with five, I think, in some ways. There's something that they find special about you, often conditionally, but it's an act of charity on their part. When a four is being kind to someone, it's because it's reflecting back to them something meaningful about themselves, or because they find something significant in their connection with that person. Maybe that person speaks to their heart, seems sincere enough to engage with, or is so fascinating, beautiful, or conversely strikingly hideous to the point of intrigue that they capture the four. That's more likely four-wing five, though, or four-wing through five, perhaps. But that they capture the four's sense of romance or imagination, or maybe they can just sense a creative pearl forming beneath the surface that a reactive heart interrogation would bring to the surface. Having said that, good luck if you're actually suffering and expect the four to hold space for more than an hour while you outsuffer their suffering. It's not the same as sick suffering, by the way. An unconscious horror will wash upon them as they become less and less the tragic star of their own film, and they may have to quickly end the communication, one-up you with their own tragic tale of woe or some other tragic affair, or spin a narrative of how you somehow cursed them or interrupted their creative process or some such. So because fours are like frustration types in the heart center, they're going to get annoyed. It's like sixes and nines with four fix can wallow. And like, you know, even without a four fix, sixes and nines can also get like the unsolvable problem mode, where it's like they're helpless babies, which is kind of how fours are, but like but sixes, but it's not like about their image center being separate and special from everybody else. It's more just like falling into like kind of a slump and wanting you to solve the problem for them, or like outsourcing to other people, like their thinking center or their autonomy, giving away their power. And that's not what a four is doing. A four, it's like four is all about like maintaining a self-image of how they see themselves. So image attack and identity nudity. When an image type's image is attacked, so again, whether it is actually or not, they're just perceiving it that way, they feel naked and disgusting, as if the lights have been turned on inside the house and they didn't have time to get dressed and make themselves look good. And every wall is now a magnified reflective surface, a house of distorted mirrors, a carnival freak show. You've seen something that they don't want you to see because it's something that even they cannot look at themselves unless they're doing self-work. The horror, like doing self-work, like actual self-work, is horrible. If you're like, I've done self-work and I'm a high health four, it's like, I'm sorry, that's not true. Like, that's simply not true. Like, it takes, I think, in my opinion anyways, like you can break specific patterns, but your actual main personality's ego mechanism is something that takes years to deal with. And often takes like a lot of rock bottoms and crises, and yeah, anyways. So you've seen something that they don't want you to see because it's something that, oh, I already said this, not editing, and now they're staring at it and cannot look away. It's something that makes them feel so profoundly inadequate that they had to create this heart-shaped fantasy in order to cope with it. For someone else, that thing may be something like totally whatever, but this is the thing that the heart type's soul has chosen as its cross to bear. So again, this is like an unconscious pattern. I think we live in a simulation, and we're Sims character. Like these, like our personality types are like our Sims ego. Like it's like a D&D game where you get this many points for this. Like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's handicapped or special in whatever that, or like talented or skilled in a specific way. It's like you get so many points, but when you start doing self-work, which, you know, I have some videos on, and I'll make more too. I find this topic interesting. So then you start to like kind of move up the health levels. Like you start to become more present and conscious, move out of NPC, not present and conscious mode. And then you start becoming less of a Sims character, like less of an NPC enthralled with your own coping strategy. Like, and the thing is, like, most people don't even know how to move out of it, because we're like in this sort of like matrix of oppression where a lot of this information is intentionally hidden from us so that we don't actualize, we don't ever step into our power or realize like the infinite possibilities that are available to us, like each type. And each type has superpowers. So regardless of whatever type you are, you have superpowers that other people don't have naturally. Anyways, so the two fears that they're unlovable and unworthy if they're not loving and nurturing. They'll be lost in the sea of others with no one who cares about them and no connections to their own heart, because their heart survival requires the blood of others. They control the narrative of their heart by self-sacrificing, giving, and loving. They turn themselves into a nest that holds you and cares for you, and you cannot survive without them. The three fears that they're unlovable and unworthy if they're not valuable, desirable, impressive, have achievements. They will be lost in the sea of others and overlooked and forgotten. They control the narrative of their heart by comparing, competing, and achieving. They turn themselves into a desirable star. So again, I know that this, like, some threes take issue to these descriptions because they're not trying to be like famous or something, but it's like you want to stand out in some kind of realm, that your instinctual realm that your type resides in. A recognizable and impressive trophy. Value. You are conveying value. They often surround themselves with other trophies that make them look good by proxy, so reflecting back to them their own self-worth, or that make them appear more impressive when sitting next to them on a shelf. Because the other, like, smaller and less impressive trophies that are still acceptable to the three's self-image to associate with, make them look better, you know? Or they can use that person to gain supply or validation from. That's more like low health three shit, but anyway. The four fears that they're unlovable and unworthy if they're common, shallow, and relatable. They'll be lost in the sea of the faceless masses with no creative significance or true meaning. They control the narrative of their heart by withdrawing, distancing, and separating themselves. They turn themselves into a rare, precious, cryptic, and one-of-a-kind symbol. And this isn't, like, again, this isn't dissociating or ghosting to the nines who relate to this. This is melodramatic and active pain used to self-generate ink and paint. Like, their absence is noticed. That's the point. This pain of abasement is so profound and bone-rattling for all of the image types that they'll do anything to avoid it, both consciously and unconsciously. This is where you almost have to have empathy, right? If you're listening to this and you're like, holy shit. This is where we have to have empathy, because we're all doing this in our own centers. Like, each type is doing their own version of this nightmare. So, and when you look at it, and you truly look at it with, like, just, all right, this is just my type. This is not me. This is my type, but this is not me. You can start to, like, kind of take a step back, and then it's like, okay, where am I creating problems for myself? Where am I fucking myself over by doing this? Where am I repelling people? Where am I, you know, like, self-sabotaging? And self-sabotage looks different for each type. So image types and their relationship to the mirror. So image types are mirror types insofar as it's all about how they see themselves and how it's reflected back to them. I personally think that all image types view other people unconsciously or consciously as an appendage or reflection of themselves. This is my personal opinion. Twos, to feel needed and loved. Threes, to feel valued and worthy. And fours, to feel separate and creatively significant. So further, the image center is using you to bolster their self-confidence. No, their self-concept, not editing. The image center is using you to bolster their self-concept, and again, and their self-confidence, actually, so that was true, but they're usually not doing this consciously, so it's not something to get, like, all worked up about if you're, I don't know, like a 6 and you're getting mad. Twos use you to feel loved, needed, and give themselves permission to have and do something that they feel too ashamed to have or do directly. You're needed for their superego to justify the love they show themselves. And that sucks, right? They gave you their old sweaters, an act of self-sacrifice, and now they have permission to buy themselves a new one. That's like, I have an SP2 for a mom, like I said. They put you first, their child or loved one, and sacrificed their big dream, and so now they get to shamelessly live through your dream, knowing that without them, your dream would not have been possible. Threes use you, and by the way, I'm reiterating points as I go. I'm trying to, like, sort of loosely tried to write it like almost this, like, unfolding ball of yarn. So, like, I'm kind of building off the concept so that it sort of fleshes out the areas that maybe require further elaboration. I don't know if it worked or not, though. So threes use you to elevate their self-image and sense of worth and value through comparison, competition, imitation, and emulation. Threes need you, whether you're someone they admire, aspire to be like, someone they view as a rival or as a rung on a ladder, or perhaps you're someone they wish to acquire like a trophy wife, or you just have something that they want in order to feel self-worth. And once they have your validation or praise, they feel worthy. Once they have achieved something you could not achieve, they feel worthy. Once they're seen as the exemplar, then they feel good enough. They need you because without you, they have no metric of their worth. And I know for like social last threes that this will be like a bit different, but there'll be still like there'll be like still a metric that exists in society and that they'll be trying to kind of top. Fours use you to deepen their experience and understanding of themselves through whatever roiling emotions and tragic narratives they're projecting onto you: disgust, unhinged passion, love of their life, despair, unutterable hatred, etc. Or perhaps you serve some utility in their self-excavation, a cameraman documenting the story of their life. I'm specifically thinking of Prince. I watched some story a while ago that Kevin Smith told about how Prince invited him over to just record people discussing his album. And I don't think he even used it. It was like, yeah, it's a funny story. You could look it up on YouTube. He's very much a four-wing three. Like it's that 3-4-4-3 crap. But how Prince did it was that he was sort of like doing the withdrawn and like prickly, whatever. Or perhaps, oh, also he sabotaged his image a lot. I'm gonna get into that in like another video of 3 and 4 versus 4 and 3, but maybe I'll drop this week because I forgot I wrote that one too. Wrote thousands of words on that one as well. So stay tuned. Okay. Or perhaps, ouch. Being in your presence reinforces the narrative that they're separate and deep because compared to you, shallow vulture, they can't help but be. This is even a dynamic I've I've observed myself play out with my forfix sometimes where it's like, oh fuck, I can see I'm creating drama here to intensify my own self-concept of being like, they're shallow, they're this, they're that, like, but not me. I'm the only true creative. The juice that you provide is specific to the narrative that the 4 has created about themselves that highlights how distant they are from others. And when you fail to deliver on this highly implausible fantasy, or you fail to see and adequately appreciate how special they are, or heaven forbid, your needs become too front and center, they will paint you fucking out of frame. In the most melodramatic or insulting way possible, insofar as it feeds their tragic narrative or suffering and separation. So they might do like the 9 thing where it's like almost ghosting, but it will be like a disgusted, like Haktua. Well, no, not that, but Patui. So yeah, it's not like the 9 softly ghosting away and then, oh, I've been busy. Like, you're done. 4s aren't negatively identified with separation the way 9s and 6s are. They like it that way. And the reason that I'm qualifying for 4 instead of doing this for 3 and 2 is because it needs to be said. So, like, if you've been in these communities for a while, you see it. You know why I'm doing this. And also because I type people, so it's frustrating. 4s like it. Okay, 4s like being hated on some level. So do 6s with forfix, but like at the end of the day, they still want that support. And I want to reiterate that image stuff, it's not about you, it's about them. So image types relationship with you, this is my interpretation, is that it's not really about you, it's about them, whatever their relationship is with you. And you could argue that about all the types, really. Everyone's type is selfish in the sense that it's serving their ego's mechanism. So even for 6s, like them, or it's like, 3, 6, 9, it's like 9 self-erasing is selfish because they're feeding their ego mechanism. It's like a self-survival mechanism. So it's just like, for some people, certain type mechanisms look worse than others because it conflicts with the message that they have internally. 2 is pointing the mirror at you and seeing themselves in the reflection. Your wins are their wins. Your achievements are thanks to their help. Your problems are their problems. According to the picture they paint, they even suffer more than you do when you're in pain often. And they find self-worth and keep the hounds of shame at bay with how much you need them and are grateful for them and appreciate them. So 3 is having sex with you in a wall-sized or ceiling, depending on your preference, mirror. They're watching themselves fuck you, dominate you, maybe more with an affix, seduce you, manipulate you, outdo you, destroy you, even become you, believing you'll never have better and they should charge you for that experience. This is how I see them. And after they're done, they may even rob your ass or steal your spouse just because they can. Just for that extra hit of validation and self-worth. Of course, how a 3 seduces, fucks, and destroys you will largely be dependent on other factors of their personality. So like an SPSO3 with a 9 gut will be much like subtle about the entire affair because they're more prone to gaslighting themselves about their own intentions. Whereas an SPSX 3/8 won't be as bothered to hide their bloodlust, for example. They find self-worth in this pursuit and keep the hounds of shame at bay through comparison and value. Like I said, the metric, they're moving on up, they're active, they're assertive in the image center. 4 is looking at themselves in the mirror, and that is absolutely fascinating enough as it is. Thank you. If they allow you into the picture with them, it's because you're changing the way the light hits them in a way that deepens their understanding of themselves or whatever they're fixated on, which is also a reflection of themselves. Or you're adding to the tragic symbol-laden narrative that they're writing about themselves on the mirror. And if you're like, Larissa, you're really painting 4s as like massive narcissists, and I don't relate to that, you're not a 4, okay? And if you take up too much space in the mirror, try and block the 4's view of themselves and their writings, the scribbles, their drawings on the mirror. Try and impose your agenda or influence on this experience, or bring in some kind of element that is repulsive to the 4 in their self-image. They will unceremoniously push you away from the mirror and seal whatever sewer pipe you crawled out of, you hideous reptile. It's okay though, because now you've become fuel for a self-indulgent song or a romantically grotesque painting. Insert wilted rose emoji. Wilted rose emoji is more 4-wing 3 through and 4 space. I like to drop it for 4 though, because I think it's funny. This is reductive, but it's necessary to understand what the type is doing by default. For 2s, it's all about your needs to meet their needs. Unconsciously, they're doing this. For 3s, it's all about their needs being met by temporarily adjusting themselves to your needs. And once their needs are met, or they realize it's a waste of time and energy, they'll discontinue adapting. And that's like why 3s can shapeshift, right? Like they can become all kinds of different things. I'm not talking about having like different interests or job paths, because all kinds of types can do that, but they're like shifting their self-image. And they can still be very located internally with what they like and what they don't like, but they're going to be meeting you with like a facade, if you will, a mask, to get what they want. For 4s, it's all about their needs, and for 4s, it's all about their needs to meet their needs. They may get into codependent dynamics that support their effete lifestyle or creative opulence, but others are merely a life support system for them to actualize their artistic significance. So I see 3s as parasites in the sense that they kind of see what's valuable and try to like harvest it for themselves, like magpies kind of. That's been my experience anyways. And for 4s, their parasites are leeches in the sense that they're like often like, unless they're one of the ones that become like famous, like where they have tons of money or something, often they need other people to like bankroll their lifestyle because they refuse to like be a plebeian. They refuse to do what they have to do in order to survive. And so probably more so if they're SP less, I don't know, but they're often like can become, and 9s and 6s can do this too when they don't want to actualize, maybe even 5s to a degree, but for 4s, it's all about being able to express themselves and be an artist because they're not part of that. They're not part of that world, okay? So can a 2 be openly selfish and stingy? Yes. Can a 3 authentically care about another person without an agenda? Yes. Can a 4 be kind and generous? Yes. I know that this is like a point of contention. People like get upset when people discuss the types in a negative light, but like, I'm sorry, but like, this is what they're doing. And if you can't handle it, then leave the room. You know what I mean? Like for people who get obsessed with the Enneagram for years, but they don't use it in any meaningful way, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're just reading this to feel good about yourself. That's not what the Enneagram's for, okay? I mean, you can use it for that, but that's not what it's for, in my opinion, anyways. Like, you literally see the cheat codes to the Matrix and you're not going to use them. You're just deepening your pod person experience. Anyway, every single Enneagram type is a user and abuser. So again, this is how their type feels safe. And they're doing it in service of the horrifying cosmic epoxy that is holding our ego in place, which we need to survive. So again, when a two is being openly selfish and stingy, when a three is being like authentic, and again, I'm not like without any kind of agenda, undercurrent agenda, you might be lying to yourself if you're three, you're like, I don't have an agenda. You have an agenda. And fours can be kind and generous, but it's not their default program. It's not where they feel safe, because that's how, like, the ego needs to feel safe. So even for like, you know, I have an 8 friend who talks about like, well, I think he's an 8. You know, he likes the danger. He doesn't want to feel safe, right? But it's like, that's how you feel safe, is by not feeling safe. So there's still this thing running in the background. And think of these tactics as survival mechanisms, even ones that you interpret, again, like as malicious or they're being largely unconsciously enacted by the person with the sole purpose of survival and their continued existence. So because our personality type is the lie that our ego tells us to stay alive. So having said that, I still find some patterns more irritating than others. But when you're able to like really truly look at your own shadow and like the horror of your own type, you do better able to understand where other types are coming from when they're doing stuff that you specifically find aberrant. So being the star of the film and pushing others out of frame. So when I first started paying attention to how image types made me feel a few years ago, I noticed the unmistakable sensation of someone attempting to push me out of the frame of my own life's film, elbowing me out of the way. The nerve! So I feel the nerve of my personally created psychedelic New Beverly's Worst Hits marathon. And they're trying to insert themselves, or again, like push me out, even if I didn't invite them to the show. And like, I didn't really grasp image type at the beginning. I can't remember who, I don't know. I was referred to something that maybe it was Tom Condon, I don't remember. I'm probably gonna butcher this. Said about how image types, it's like all about like the gaze, or like it's like it's like the camera's always on them. And I was like, well, it doesn't, like, I think everybody feels like the camera's on them. You know what I mean? Like, we're all in our own Truman Show. So that never made sense to me. I think everyone has some kind of fantasy that they're living in and that they're narrating, and like that to me never, like, almost everyone I know, maybe this is not true, but like fives or something, but it's like I think most everyone I know, or maybe they don't, I don't know, feel like they're in their own movie, right? Like they're in their own story. So that never made sense to me. So how I like really started, when I started being truly present, like, what is this person doing? And how do they make me feel? What are they triggering inside of me? And I especially get triggered sometimes by like threes, not like self-aware ones, but because there's like this kind of look at me thing going on with image types, even fours, like where it's like this kind of, there's a kind of desperation as they try to edit over top of your film with theirs. So twos by intruding and helping, and like, you know, inserting. They know what's best. Threes by outdoing and competing, trying to outshine. Here's like, sometimes they can be boastful, and sometimes threes do boasting in a more subtle kind of way, but it's still there. They're still doing this sort of comparison and like highlighting, you know, of their value. And fours by being difficult. They're not participating. Okay. They desire to be the main character in all situations. You're merely a bit player in their movie, an extension of themselves, or an object of frustration, affection, or rivalry. So even threes as attachment or adaptation types, like, it's like you're still a bit player, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, because threes are really good at like seeing the heart and like engaging with the heart space, right? Because they're in the grid in the image center, the emotion center, but it can often be to get something out of you, um, or have something reflected back to themselves about about them, like their value or worth. A two pushes you out of frame to be your needed, adored figure, or to talk about how they're the lead in someone else's film who needs them. Like often twos or two fixers can like talk about other people instead of themselves, and like how they help and how they're needed. And so this is sort of like I'm telling you like typing how to type secrets basically, with some of this stuff, because this is sort of like, I don't know, probably other people have talked about this too, but this is something that I just sort of started picking up through observing. And they draw attention to how loving and needed they are. So while this means twos can be the one who will nurse you back to health, make sure you're well fed and cared for, it also can manifest as them essentially like owning you, especially as a rejection type, and having a level of control over your life. So it's like owning you in the heart center. Whether it's because you actually do need them, like for example, financially. Unfortunately, a lot of people with 9, 4, and 6 can end up in that trap. I don't know anything about that. Or probably SB last, maybe. Or they're like the go-between for you and something you desire, or like people, or something like that. Or because they find a way to constantly meddle and intrude, they become indispensable. And they become the star through self-sacrifice, martyrdom, manipulation, and even hoe behavior of SX, like pampering someone else's husband or being overtly sexual and gooey. I used to be friends with I don't know if she's sexual social or social sexual too. I used to live with her, and it was next level. It was next level, truly. The only way to then I did it back to her boyfriend. To get even with her, and she stopped. Anyways, there's like a little life hack if you're dealing with a two with sexual in their type. Do it back to them, see how they like it. You will know the two has invaded your frame when you feel a dozen wet tentacles wrap themselves around your independence, privacy, relationships, and agency. A 3 often enters your film by impressing you with something, which can involve bringing someone else's movie with them to indirectly highlight how valuable they are, whether it's because the relationship makes them look good or they look good by comparison. So this is also, again, like something I noticed when I was typing people, was that sometimes like 3s, well, I mean, I'm still typing people, but it's like sometimes 3s will bring in these sort of stories to highlight like how they're better at something than somebody else. And that'll be influenced by their wing. Or they'll tell you something that you want to hear, because 3s are good at that. Again, manipulation. It's like a talent and like it's like both a talent and a sort of villainous trait, if you will. And if they find your movie more desirable than their current one, and it seems doable to them, once they've gained your trust, doable and valuable, I would say, and they've gained your trust and they're squarely positioned in your film, they'll begin the process of trying to straight up push you out of your own movie and replace you as the leading lady. I've had this happen to me a couple times, 3 times anyways, with friends, with 3 friends. And if you won't allow them to edit themselves into your film and become the star, they'll splice elements of your movie. So like, you know, metaphorically, I'm speaking in some ways, but also literally, the aesthetic, the film score, the dialogue, the costumes, and the other characters, your leading man, your love interest, your best friend, into their movie. And maybe even key your screen or try and steal your audience on the way out. I know that these are messy. They're a work in progress, okay? A 4 is in their own film. They aren't trying to push you out of frame to accomplish anything other than keeping you out of theirs. They don't enter your film. You enter theirs. You taint it, poison it, make it ugly. They're largely uninterested in whatever's playing in the other theater's rooms unless it speaks to them in a meaningful way. So again, like with the sacrifice thing, where at least this is my opinion, and I have a 4 fix, so, and this is what I've sort of loosely observed, is like they're sacrificing something by putting the attention on you. It's not something they feel obligated to do. It's because you're sparking something, okay? Perhaps you're playing But, you know, perhaps you're playing a catastrophically loud action film next door and their attention is unavoidably drawn to it. If they have to pause their film, they'll be seeking to push your vulgar trash out of the screening room so they can resume filming. This, like, again, like, I know this is getting messy, my metaphors. It's just kind of all over the place, but whatever. And they do this with brooding expressions of disgust, refusing to participate, dramatic or slyly cutting insults. I love 4-wing-3 and 4-wing-3 fixed insults, especially the social. Or intentionally getting under your skin to invoke a negative reaction so they can see behind whatever false persona they think that you're presenting, real or imagined, and then they're gonna knife you. Again, it can be a subtle knifing. They're hoping by doing this, it cuts the power to your projection room, so you just go away, or as grounds to get a restraining order so you can never invade their sacred screening room again. And if the 4 does invite you into their screening room to bear witness to their film, or even come in as a guest star or romantic interest, it comes with conditions and is revocable at any time. It's on your terms, or it's on their terms, it's not on your terms. So, and I think that this is something that, like, again, like, 9s and 6s kind of need to understand about what's actually happening with the frustration image core. It's like, you're redundant, okay? They don't really need you there. Envy and heart types. So envy, just like jealousy, is just an average human emotion that anyone can feel throughout their life and doesn't necessarily indicate type. So, like, I personally, like, most of the people I know that are actually, like, I would consider, like, envious haters are 6s, and 9s are, like, often low-key envious, so they're just, like, kind of, like, stewing because they have, like, a fear of being online or, like, being seen or whatever, and so then they can get kind of, like, dissociatedly envious of people who put themselves out there. And, you know, 6s as reactive types can do the, like, especially with a 4 fix, can do the whole like loud envy, like lacerating, hating kind of stuff. But the most classically envious type, in my opinion, is 3, specifically 3 and 4. In my personal experience, that's what I've actively observed, where it's like it's an active envy because they're going to do something about it as an assertive type, where they want to outdo you, they want to outshine you, they want to take you down. Again, this is low health stuff. So, however, I believe that envy goes hand in hand with shame. Therefore, in what I'm presenting here, image types are all envy types, despite it only being associated with type 4. The definition, according to dictionary.com, of envy is to feel resentful and unhappy because someone else possesses or has achieved what one wishes oneself to possess or have achieved. So, like I said, all image types are envy types because they're about their self-image. And if information to the contrary comes in that someone is like or more of that self-concept than themselves, it might trigger the fuck out of them. If they see that person as threatening to their self-concept, then envy can arise. Because image types want to avoid shame of not being how they desire to see themselves at all costs, envy can be highly activating to them. Because envy can be like information that they are not good enough, that they're not who they think they are, they're not the most in that thing. So if you've ever been in a room with a pair of 2s, you know what I'm talking about. It's like a nurturing, self-sacrificing competition. Who's the most caring and generous? It's totally hilarious and revolting. Like, oh, you, oh no. The muffins are flying, the offers of this favor and that favor, and like 2 fixers do this too, while also smiling and flattering each other. 2s won't identify with the emotion of envy, like probably externally, like they won't admit it, unless maybe it has to do with like a lover or something, or if they have like sexual in their type perhaps. But as a super ego type, they seek to erase like the negative emotions associated with their self-image. You know, and positive types, they do that through care and flattery because it goes strongly against their self-concept to be like, you know, hateful and selfish and you know, some of the cattiest people I know are twos. So it's not like they're not. And sometimes why I like twos, you know, like the two that I already mentioned, she was so catty, and like that's partly why I tolerated her, her bullshit, because she made me laugh my ass off all the time because she was such a fucking bitch. She's like I think a 268, but just one of the cattiest people I've ever met, and it entertained me. So but they still want to be seen. They don't want to be seen perhaps that way. Uh, she's a twoing three though, so I think she probably liked that I liked that about her a little bit. But at the end of the day, people are still doing their core type. Um, Threes envy and covet what you have, what you are, who you know, what you do, um, when it triggers their self-concept, like how you look, these kinds of things, your success. Um, I don't know. I could go on and on, I guess. Whatever. What they envy are all the things that they think have worth or value where their ego lives. If you have that in an area that they do or perceive as lacking themselves, then they'll envy that. Threes envy is in the conventional sense of the word. Higher health threes are more playful and light about this competitive aspect about themselves. But lower health threes can become quite calculated, sinister, and underhanded when their envy is awoken. Threes seek to do something about their envy, like I said, because they're assertive types. And I think like low health threes as the single white female, you know, that movie, I don't know if it's like 80s or 90s, because once they get into envy mode, they're not just content to outdo you, like they also want to replace and annihilate you. Like this is kind of like, again, low health shit, but I literally have experienced this firsthand. So maybe I'll do a film analysis of single white female. It might actually be funny, but I don't want to do too many 3-year-olds on this channel. Four envy is kind of pitiable on some level. They envy people being able to just function and have some kind of normal life that feels unreachable to them because they're simply so despairing and separate. Of course, they don't actually want a regular life or to be functional like a regular person. As withdrawn types, they're not going to do anything about this envy per se, other than maybe they'll just double down their efforts and like how they're like creative or original, or like not original maybe, but separate, unique. Original may be more of a 7 thing. I have both. So as with because like again, like to sort of, they can, if a 4-wing 3 can get competitive, but again, like I said, it's more about them being more themselves. Like it's more about like, oh no, that person's sort of like similar to me in some way, and then that is like destructive to my self-concept, so I have to hate them first of all, and also have to like almost like double down on my efforts of being like deepening my self-concept and like my special kind of signature. I've noticed like I love following like rivalries, and you know some of them are obviously fake, like celebrity ones, but I've noticed this specifically 3-wing 4, 4-wing 3, and 7s. 7-wing 8s usually, or 7 with an 8 fix is usually the combo. There's something that goes on there, and so I think that like 4s can be actively hating envy in the sense of that way, but also their envy is like also like, look at those mindless plastic phonies going about their meaningless jobs. And the thing is like the 4 could easily do that too, but they don't want to. Type 4's envy is tainted by dysfunction, repulsion, and hate. So it's like a 3 will destroy their rival to or best them by outdoing them, by being more successful, by I don't know. But a 4 will look at that person as a way to make excuses for why they can never truly exist in congruency with this world, which feeds their self-image or further unconscious fuel for separation. So it's like, if only I had it. Like 6s can do this too, but the way 4s do it, again, like I said, it's still focused on the special exception, which 6s don't do as like the autopilot. So it can be something like, if only I had a director dad, then I'd get my movie made. Of course, they have an album. They're a sellout pod person. Oh, if only I was a cum guzzling fraud, then I too would get an art show. And the irony is, like I already said, they don't even really want whatever it is that they're enviously whining about, because if they got it, then they'd find a way to ruin it themselves. So, and like I'm bringing in creative aspects to the four, because I don't think that you can be a four and not have like creative identity ego and be creative. I just don't think you can be. So, you know, sorry to all the people who think they're fours that clearly aren't soccer moms out there. And also like decoupaging, like Santa Claus decorations doesn't count. Threes want success and will seek to maintain it. They can, three-wing fours can sabotage their image insofar as like they can lean into the four insufferability, like they can get too high on their own supply and like kind of accidentally fuck themselves over, or like in pursuit of like taking down another person, like a rival or something, they might sabotage themselves by getting like super far off course, or people seeing like the bullshit, like the deceptions and stuff like that. But fours may entertain delusions of grandeur. Being able to support themselves with their creations is okay for a while, but success isn't really on the table. Like it might give them a temporary high before it quickly leaves them feeling disgusting or like out of congruence with their actual self-image. So they'll set their entire life on fire just to purge it from their psyche. It's only by the grace of the simulation that a bunch of notorious famous fours have maintained careers for as long as they have, despite being insufferable. So like Morrissey, for example, who I fucking love, he's insufferable, and he kind of actively goes out of his way to say things intentionally, I think, or well unconsciously because he's doing his type, that literally will lose him fans. You know, he shits on his record, the record companies and everything else that he has to deal with. Like he purposely sets shit on fire. I think I read somewhere that he well, probably like an image versus image thing. He had a tour with David Bowie, and he just like just didn't feel like going out one night, and just, I don't know, got like his image, like he didn't probably feel like the special show. It was David Bowie was the special one, so he refused to go out, or I don't know, I'm probably butchering that story. But even Prince, it's like if you're looking at the ones that are successful, they're still sabotaging on the image level. They're still sabotaging because like or Prince, for example, like he became famous for being like the sexy little provocative peacock, right? And then he became like a Jehovah's Witness and went hard into like spirituality, which is like the complete opposite direction. And it's not like a three thing of like adapting to the ideal. It's like he literally set his old image on fire and made it a situation where he could have completely destroyed his career. And I think he used to go out on stage with like slave written on his face and stuff because he was so mad at his record company. So like that's kind of how you'll see that manifesting. And so this envy is just a projection of self-hatred about their own, like that they use about other people, is a projection of self-hatred about their own self-indulgent uselessness more than anything else. Just like it's more like, oh, if only I could be like a normal person. Normal people have it so easy. Like it's that kind of thing. But they don't really want that. Bitching and moaning is a recreational pleasure for fours and four fixers, I think. The heart center comes with strings attached. I feel like I'm running a marathon. This is so fucking long. 2 is emotionally expanding outwards, service, care, you. 2 is emotionally self-indulgent outwards, masturbatorily overdoing their connections to others with intrusion, meddling, helping. Actually, I just realized, as I said, service, care, you. It's like the TV show You. 4 is emotionally expanding inwards, creation, reflection, me. 4 is emotionally self-indulgent inwards, masturbatorily overdoing their connection to self and their creations, so their expressions of themselves. 3 is emotionally triangulating between themselves and others. 3 is emotionally self-indulgent with others' gaze directed at them, masturbatorily getting hits of validation from others to feed the self. So 3 is sort of doing the both. Type 2, further. So sticky, sweet strings that lure you in but are impossible to wash off. Again, I don't know, these metaphors are sort of loose. Two's heartstrings are active tentacles. Two's identity is pulled inside. Their self-worth is other-generated, and it travels past the outer barrier, tentacles that reach out to feed and nourish itself. Their focus is radiating out, pulling you inside of them, like Hansel and Gretel into the witch's candy house, or a kraken pulling you into its caring mouth. Ew. Not editing this. They want to fatten you up with love so you can't leave. The more you depend on them, the more impossible it becomes to escape. So again, sucks to be a 9 or a 4 or even a 6. But the 2 can become resentful of this too, especially if you're not giving them that image nutrition that they want. And when it's time to collect, you're going into the ego's oven to be baked to perfection and devoured. Your successes will be because of them. Your new family home will be the one they move into or invite themselves to all the time. The grandparent that never leaves. 2's imprint on you. They leave their stink on you. They meddle and insert themselves. They're the drug you need and probably didn't ask for in order to survive. Like a drug dealer, the first one's free. The 2 also has an agenda, and with that agenda comes entitlement. How this entitlement fucks them over is that it literally drives people away, running, screaming, erecting hostile boundaries, full of booby traps to keep the milky teats and caring, prying fingers from being thrust into their faces and orifices. 2's put focus on you so they don't have to experience shame. By turning you into an appendage or tasty baked morsel, your offering to the shame kraken keeps the fantasy of their kindness alive and keeps the roiling embarrassments at bay. Type 3. The heartstrings are a glistening razor sharp trap. This is just my interpretation of what's going on with the 3. I'm sure actual 3 won't relate to this, but 3's heartstrings create an invisible glittering fishnet that can become razor sharp with the flick of a wrist and moves outwards and inwards. So their unconscious intention is to harvest trophies. While they're telling you what your own desperate little heart wants to hear, they're pulling everything you deem valuable of yours into their own image to enhance their self-worth. This might be your ideas, your partner, your friends, your connections, your energy, time, efforts, talents, knowledge, or attention. As long as you allow this transaction to occur seamlessly, continue to feed their image beast, the image beast, with praise or whatever their assertive heart desires, while never doing anything to make their position or self-image feel threatened, you're safe. But this false image they created just for you is also a trap. The moment you renege on this dynamic, it's like the scene in Cube where the net comes down and slices you into tiny pieces. The fishing net you didn't notice closing around you, that was shoplifting all of your treasures, pulls taut and cuts through every muscle and bone, and you're severed in pieces on the ocean floor, wondering what the fuck just happened. Left watching as the 3 floats away with bags of your shiniest trophies to applause from the other people they have tangled in their image net of horrors. As controllers of this net and the flowing waters around it, 3's control the gaze towards their positive attributes, values, or like what's valuable about them, skills and accomplishments. Valuable assets. They became what is desirable, and therefore they feel entitled to acknowledgement, appreciation, and rewards, even if those rewards are your personal effects, metaphorically speaking. They turn their heart into a 24/7 marketing team, and they require compensation for the hard work. They might tell themselves that they're competing with just themselves, but they also want admiration and validation, and without it, they wither. This is how 3's lose themselves to the entitlement of their attachment heart. That quest for ultimate validation turns them into someone who's not even them, tangled up in their own razor-sharp fishing net full of trophies that are now sinking them, weighing them down. Or this is like what I like to fantasize happens to them after they've taken my treasures. A phantom of a Xerox of a replica spinning around in a pile of silt, and all of the praise, awards, and riches mean nothing. Type 4. The heartstrings are rusty steel that cut your fingers when you try and play a song on them. So fours' hearts strings are pointed inwards. The entrance is hidden, and the strings are taut and rusty like in old guitars. They're soldered directly into the fours' ribcage with viscera of past heartbreaks and slights interwoven. Their focus is on their own heart and find it difficult to put endless focus on others, regardless of what they get in return, because nothing is more rewarding to a four than themselves and their private cave of reflective surfaces and tortured ghosts. A four may have a lover that they're consumed with, but it's feeding their fantasies with a narrative of some kind of otherworldly romance that only serves to intensify their active, self-focused melodrama. And this can create tangles. And they're also frustration types, so there's always going to be some problem. That there's going to be something. And this can create tangles in the strings the more another person is involved. If you receive an invitation to the outer cavity of the rose-shaped dungeon ribcage, you'll never be truly comfortable or alone with your beloved. The rusty steel strings will be cutting into your flesh. You'll be walking around on eggshells and waking up alone in bed to late-night howls in the corridors. And when you investigate what's going on at such an ungodly hour, you'll find your four naked and sweaty with a muse, an apparition from the past or future, a freakish fascination, or another person who they need for creative fuel. And they'll throw a jar of paint water at your head for interrupting the lovemaking process. The deeper type 4 goes into themselves, which is a lifelong project, the more burrowed into their own prison they become until it collapses on them like a tomb. There is no exit, visitors or invaders. Four's heart is not just a deep rib cage, not just in the deep, oh my God. Four's heart is not just deep in the ribcage of self, it's inside a vault with levels of passwords and symbols and booby traps. And if you try and put your hand in, the acid will get you. Do not confuse this with the mask of 3 or 9. The 4 isn't losing themselves to the hustle or connection. They're not adapting to your face and secretly hiding another personality or whatever behind the scenes. They've simply crawled so deep inside their own ass that all they can smell is shit. And you'll smell it too if they're an actual 4. Unlike a 3 or a 9, 4s are not really taking you into themselves. They may have an extended visitor, you may have an extended visitor pass, but it's just that, a visitor's pass. And it's entirely conditional upon your behavior, enabling their more precious than life persona and self-centered activities. This isn't to be confused with a 3 wanting to feel like the star or VIP, MVP, blah, blah, blah. If you take a broke and unknown 4, their life will probably be quite small and creating some kind of tortured artist existence in a leaky basement in some vacuous city that they love to criticize. They drink to excess and eat their paint when they're depressed and make their girlfriend or their parents pay for everything so that they can finish some shitty life-altering deep painting. And once they finish it, they fucking hate it to infinity and beyond. And then they hate whoever also that they're like leeching off. Like, this is what reactive image is, okay? It's just, especially if they're not getting what they want and they're in that constant frustration cycle, they're gonna blame everybody else. Like, image types, in my opinion, blame, I mean, I guess 6s and 9s do it too, blame everybody else for their problems. If you take a famous 4, their life may also be insular, but they're likely to indulge many of their grand fantasies that they have, or like a rich 4, but I feel like they would have to be like creatively in some way successful. And they'll indulge their fantasies of specialness, and they'll bankroll ridiculous shit. Like if you think about like Prince and Paisley Park, for example. A 4 keeps their strings tight so they can snatch their heart back at any moment. No one truly holds it but the 4. Not to be confused with the 3's heartlessness, 4 simply can't allow their heart to stray too far from their own ribcage for too long before it starts to hiss and ash like a vampire in the sun, and they return to their faithful muse who never abandons themselves. So image crafting, this is just something that I felt like adding on because I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, comment on it. You might not know what I'm talking about, but is image crafting an image type thing? So while image types essentially put forth an image, the concept of image crafting, in my opinion, which you may disagree with, is primarily the realm of 3. I'm not sure who came up with this concept, so I don't know who to credit, but it seems like ancient embedded Enneagram lore that I've just seen in like multiple groups over the years. So perhaps this is semantics, but I think this aspect of image causes confusion for people who are actually a 3, a 6, or a 9. 2s and 4s don't curate or craft how you see them. They are just aggressively doing their type. And you may misinterpret this image, but they're not going to adjust their image to get the desired effect. That's 3. They're just going to double down. 2s and 4s will just double down on what they're already doing. Like a wind-up toy with feet that can only point in one direction. It's like a Mario Kart that's gone like off the thing. It's like they can only, all they can do is like hit the fucking wall. 3s will adjust to get the desired effect, which is having their value appreciated and worth validated, being seen in a positive, impressive light, which involves crafting, curating, adjusting, recreating, reassembling. Masking, shifting, curating, and crafting is the realm of attachment and adaptation. 3, 6, 9. All attachment types, because they're adapting, are crafting an image to a degree. The projected self is influenced by its surroundings and somewhat, if not wholly, malleable. Even 6s, who are reactive types and therefore all about like realness and truth and authenticity, do this to a degree because 6s are adapting in the head center and wanting to find common ground with their chosen group, be liked, be accepted, or even like counterphobically backed up by a posse or an outlier group. There's still like that guidance. They need to have something and some kind of thing to identify with, which necessitates a level of self-abandonment. 3s are the ones that actually craft an image that they're selling you. That's like the salesman thing, but they're selling themselves. They'll fake it till they make it, and this is something that has to be constantly maintained, updated, tweaked, renovated, split tested, and checked for outdated, out of fashion, or undesirable aspects. 3s craft their image to get their desired outcome. Therefore, their image is fluid and malleable so long as it's flattering to their ego. 2s and 4s do their own type to their own detriment. There isn't crafting involved, just the same unsightly flea market atrocity year after year. 2s embody the nurturer archetype, and they cannot veer from their programming, even if it would be to their benefit. Like they can for like short stints, but that's not their program. A 2-wing 3 may be a social climber, like a 3-wing 2, but they'll be doing it by ingratiating themselves and making themselves necessary to someone they deem important or a group. A 3-wing 2 can paint themselves as necessary to get their foot in the door, but it's a crafted image to get a desired effect, and they will craft a new charming one moment to moment where necessary to get what they want. Because ultimately the 3 wants to be the shiniest and most valuable, not the one doing the cupcakes and kisses, not the one doling out the cupcakes and kisses. So 4s are their image. They are the self-inflicted suffering artist, the embodiment of creativity and depth in their mind. So it doesn't actually mean that like this is where people are like, I'm a 4 because I'm creative. It's like everyone in the world is creative, okay? But this is like part of their self-image. And it's not like I'm an artist, therefore I'm a 4. It's like, no, it's not like that. It's like on an integral level of like they can't see themselves outside of that, or it has like a dissonant, like upsetting effect to them. And even when they're with you, it's still all about deepening their own experience of self, not about convincing you that they are a certain way or upholding some kind of image. The concept of image is actually fucking disgusting to 4s, in my opinion, because it implies that there's something false about them. They may correct you if you paint them with the brush of a vapid commoner, but they're unlikely to elaborate either because you're not worth the pearls, swine. They may bring their ratty sketchbook with them everywhere they go, but it's in service of them reinforcing their self-image to themselves. I'm an artist. I'm tortured. You don't need to witness it unless, of course, they want you to, unless it's like how they're hooking you, you know what I mean? Anyways, that's my little rant, and I am done. I don't want to talk anymore. Subscribe to the Substack if you want to also read these articles, because yeah, like I said, I forgot that I had written a whole bunch, and also if I talked too fast. And yeah, they're unflattering depictions, I know, but I don't know, that's just how I operate. So again, if you're into that, please like, subscribe, whatever. And if you're not, then just go find somebody else to torture. 6s, 9s. Stop tone policing me. Leave me alone. Bye.